In honor of Women's History Month here at Longleaf Recovery and Wellness, we want to recognize some of our women in recovery. We hope you enjoy hearing their stories. Hey, I'm Amy Rast, Chief Clinical Officer here at Longleaf Recovery and Wellness.
Hey, I'm Cameron Harris, and I'm the HR Director here at Longleaf Recovery and Wellness, and I have been sober for 6 years.
My name's Newly Farouk. I'm the Client Care Coordinator at Birmingham Recovery Center, and I have been sober for 11 years. I'm Elizabeth Wackenhut. I am the Client Care Coordinator at Longleaf Wellness, and I have been sober for 6 years.
I'm Katie. I'm the Intake Representative at Longleaf Recovery and Wellness, and I have been sober for about 3 years.
I'm Shauna. I'm a nurse practitioner at Longleaf Recovery, and I've been sober for 11 years.
First, I want to thank you guys for letting me be a part of this. I feel really special to be able to do it. Just want to recognize that y'all are a really amazing group of women that are living examples of recovery, and I'm just honored to work with y'all every day. So I'm going to ask some questions. First off, what are some of the biggest challenges you faced as women in recovery, and how did you overcome them?
I think for me, one of the biggest challenges as a woman in recovery, I think especially coming into the rooms, is sort of the kind of own ideas I had about like maybe the negativity or what other people were going to think. And I think even too, like, you know, what other people's perception is about women in recovery.
So I think, for me, I am a mother, and I had a small child when I came into the rooms, and then I had a son in sobriety. And it's kind of like that cliche of like doing it all. You work, you're a mom, then I have to do my own recovery, sponsor other women. And really, it's a joy, if I can really be in the present moment. There are times where it can feel overwhelming, and how am I going to do all of this? But the reality is I'm lucky to do it all, but I think that for mothers and women, it is a little different than the men.
Like what I'm going to say at first, it's not just a woman thing. It's for men and women, but shame was like real big for me when I first came in. And more recently, it's been like I have a newer baby, and it's like trying to make it all work and having realistic expectations of myself and of other people. And like Newly said, it really is a gift to be able to do it all, but sometimes my feelings aren't a true representation of my actual experience.
Just because there's not as many women, I think, that come into the rooms or that get the treatment that they need, because there are a lot of obligations that women have to tend to with being mothers and tending to the household. And of course, education, professional goals, things like that. I think there's a lot of things that might defer women from getting the treatment that they need. And you kind of see that in the rooms where there's a lot of men versus not as many women. And so that might be intimidating for newer women. And it's tricky, I think, for women to come in and to not feel a sense of guilt of giving up certain things or certain obligations to take care of themselves.
All right. What role has community and connection with other women played in your recovery journey?
A massive role, and there is a whole TED talk about how the opposite of addiction is not sobriety, it is connection. And I feel like that's what I was searching for the whole time when I was using other substances and just drowning myself out. And it wasn't until I started being a woman in recovery and surrounding myself with like-minded people that I became alive in that way. And it's like everything that I was searching for, I found in this new life, and I can't tell you how many times I've gone to my closet floor crying about something going on in my life, and I'm picking up the phone and I'm calling another woman in this program. And there's nothing in my 11 years that I have been through that somebody else hasn't already gone through and stayed sober. And that is so cool to me, how we heal in our brokenness. It's not when I have everything together that I'm going to attract people. It's in my brokenness that someone else is going to be able to relate to me. So I think that's the beauty about being in recovery.
I think for me, like, it is everything. I know when I came in, I had lost my sense of self, but also my, like, being a mother, being a daughter, being a good friend. And the women that are in my life that have walked through this with me, they have very much shaped who I am today. They taught me how to show up for people. They taught me, more importantly, how I show up for myself.
I've spent my entire adult life pretending that I didn't need anyone, you know? And so when I came in, I found these women, who became huge role models for me. And having these relationships with these women has shown me a love that I never really knew existed. The type of love where, okay, you're upset. What are we going to do? Are we just going to like sit on the floor and cry together? Because we can do that, and having women around you is just so important because there are things that women go through that only women understand. And there are things that men go through that only men understand.
Newly, I think you touched on this, but that, at least for me, I have friends that are not people in recovery, but what's so cool about friends in recovery is that I feel like you can go to them with something so wild and say something that you feel like is like such a huge deal, and they'll just like look at you and be like, oh yeah, me too. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I think that's so cool. And I also think something that's so special about women in recovery supporting other women in recovery is the just sort of like the instant connection that is in and of itself, and just kind of the honesty in it. I mean, I can say for some of the women on this couch that I haven't known as long, but I feel like you probably know more about me than other people that have been in my life for a lot longer. So I think that piece of it is so important and has been for me in my recovery.
I think for me, there's been times where I haven't been able to have the luxury of, going to as many meetings or doing as many things that I was able to do early on. And there's been so many times that I've reached out to the women in my network and, they have assured me that like, Shauna, look where your feet are, not where your head's at. And they've assured me that like, the quality of my relationships are still maintained and the principles are still being lived in my life, even though, maybe on a daily basis, things don't look the way that they did 11 years ago. And just knowing that we're like-minded people that are working towards the same goals, which is, to practice principles in our affairs and to have, our character defects be worked on and to do virtuous things on a daily basis. I think that's one thing as far as just trying to make sure that we're in alignment with what we want to do and the way that we want to act on a daily basis and the humans that we want to be and like the relatability of what we came from versus what we are now. That really keeps me in line when I might not have the ability to go to a meeting.
How has your recovery journey influenced your relationships with family, friends, or children?
I love this question. So when I first got sober, I had lost custody of my daughter. I signed her over. Neither one of my parents could really speak to me because there was a strict boundary, right? And I can say today, like, it's really special because, like, you can't see her, but she's sitting over there. I get to see and speak to my daughter whenever I want. And I like to believe that, I've become a safe person for her. And now I'm raising another little one, that's amazing. That's not something that I thought was going to be possible. I really didn't. And it's just the dynamic of my family today. I couldn't have imagined it. Mm-hmm. If you would have told me this is what it was going to be like, I wouldn't have believed you.
My relationship with my family had gotten so bad, I couldn't even look at myself in the mirror anymore. And they were honestly my number one motivation for getting sober. If you know my mom at all, she is the most loving, caring, kind person on the face of this planet. There's nothing that she won't do for her children, but she was done. And when I was in jail and I realized that, I remember going back to the cell and I just was like, what have I done? And through this process, I have been able to rebuild those relationships with my families. My dad and I barely spoke during active addiction. My older sister was also done. And it's taken a while. But only within the last year, have my older sister and my father started opening up to me again, and that's the most beautiful thing about this program. It's given me my family back, who I care about and love the most in this world.
I love this question too. And I'm just reflecting back on the chaos that ensued. I lied for my parents. I stole, I cheated. And I remember the last time that my dad bailed me out of jail, and he and my mom showed up to Shelby County Jail, and he said, I will never do this again. And to this day, because of the program that I work, he hasn't had to do it again. And we've got to rebuild something so beautiful. And like you said, Elizabeth, like it took my mom 3 years to give me a key to her condo. They just did not trust me. They used to drive me to meetings, wait for me outside. And throughout all the chaos that ensued, they never left my side, and that was everything to me. And even at Birmingham Recovery Center, we say that family support, that proves better results for a person's recovery. And then my sweet kids, and just to be able to be present and be a mom to them. And like Katie, I too lost custody of my older son. And now I have 2 beautiful boys. We're under the same roof. And that's what it's about, right? Yes, being helpful to other women and being a better person, but under my own roof is the most important. How are my relationships today? How am I showing up for them? And because of this new life, that's been possible.
I also love this question. I think that's one of the biggest shifts. I mean, I look back to, who I was in active addiction and the kind of daughter I was, the kind of friend I was. And I mean, now today, my parents and I love being together, and I call my mom probably every day after work, just like, hey, and sometimes she'll be like, yeah, I got nothing. But that's because they want to talk to me and because I want to talk to them. And I think back to the kind of daughter I was and all of the things that I put them through. And much like you just shared about your parents, they were still always there and so supportive. And I think that made the world of a difference because they made sure that I got the help that I needed to get. And I also, I didn't have my 2 kids until after finding recovery, but I can only imagine what it would have looked like if it were before, because I could show up for them and be a good mom to them. And I can't imagine knowing how I was when I was still drinking and being responsible for these 2 little girls. Mm-hmm. And I think that to me is it's the biggest gift of it all. So
I think for me, it's given me the ability to be able to really meet people where they're at. And, sometimes I think we do the best with what we're given. And sometimes our best does not look great. I know for me, I was really, really terrified a lot of the time during active addiction. And I was scared to kind of put one foot in front of the other, but I was also scared to just stand still and not do anything. And I think that a lot of people experience kind of that same feeling of being somewhat paralyzed by life on life circumstances. And I think it's given me the ability to be able to kind of have compassion for other people, try to relate to other people, try to understand that, maybe they're doing the best that they could with the circumstances. I think I did the best that I could with the circumstances. And, eventually I did something about it, but that took a lot of time and that took a lot of surrendering and that took a lot of me being sick and tired of being sick and tired. And it's allowed me to kind of have that same compassion for other people and just hope that they get sick and tired of being sick and tired too. Not just with substances, but with all sorts of things going on with other people.
If you could give one message of hope to women in recovery or those still struggling, what would it be?
You are not beyond saving. I spent so many hours being so resentful at God because I was just like, if this is all I am going to be, if all I am going to do for the rest of my life is be in my parents' house, doing dope, why did you put me here? And through recovery, it showed me that that person never went away. The person that I was before the drugs, that never went away. It was just buried underneath all of this shame and self-destruction. You are not the things that you have done, to survive. And you're not beyond repair, you just have to keep going. And it's hard. And, some days it's going to feel very impossible. But if you just keep going and talk to the people that are in your network, you can get through anything. And the fight is so worth it.
I would tell them, first of all, I know this is like a cliche thing to say, but if I can do this, if Cameron can do this, if all of us can do this, then anybody can do this, okay? Because I don't think any of us ever imagined that this would be our lives today, you know? And also, it's not about the substance. It's not about the drugs. It's not about the alcohol. That is a symptom to the bigger problem, which is me and the way that I think. And once I really grasped that, I think it changed the whole game, because the whole time I thought that it was this, if I could just stop getting high, my life will be better. And the reality is it got worse before it got better. You take away that substance, you take away my solution, and it's painful, and I'm empty, and I have to find something to fill that void, you know? And for me, it was being in recovery, you know? And the last thing I'll say is, don't give up before the miracle, right? I used to tell myself that over and over on the days that felt so hard, so exhausting, so drained, and the miracle keeps showing up. It hasn't stopped showing up, and it keeps getting better.
I think if I could give a message of hope, it's that life does become beautiful. I completely agree with what Newly said. My first year was just, it's uncomfortable. It's not cute. But on the other side of that is that not only did I go through one of the hardest things in sobriety, I went through one of the hardest things in my life very recently. And life is still beautiful. My life is still good because I kept moving my feet, right? And these women that are around me, they're the makeup of that. So yeah, life does get beautiful, and it's not always going to feel like your feelings aren't always going to reflect that, but it's absolutely worth it.
I think for me, really just taking it one day at a time and really breaking that down sometimes to 5 minutes at a time. I would get so overwhelmed whenever I first came in, and I would think, like, what am I going to do at my wedding? And, you know, what graduations and, you know, this, that, and the other. And you can get so caught up with future tripping about things that are, you know, so mundane and irrelevant compared to the present day. And it really is, you know, one day at a time, just for today. Pick up the phone and call somebody today. Go to a meeting today. Abstain from substances today. And day by day, you end up putting together some substantial amount of time, and it goes by and you don't even notice that that's what's happening. So stay in the present, 24 hours at a time, or 5 minutes at a time if you have to, because I know for me, I would get really overwhelmed, but I would break it down, and that made it a lot more conceivable for me.
I also share a lot of those feelings about it, but I think kind of what Shauna said, staying in the present and then really leaning on the women in your network. And if you ever feel like a problem is too big to talk with another person, just pick up the phone anyway and do it.
Hey everyone, it's Sophie, just popping in to say thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of Rooted in Resilience. I want to thank all of the amazing women on our staff who were so willing to share their stories with you today. If you or anyone you know is struggling with substance abuse or mental health, we would encourage you to reach out to us. Feel free to shoot us a message on our Instagram, Facebook. You can find us at longleafcenters.com. Thanks so much, and I hope you all have a great rest of your day.